This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, Malma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Vietnam. Hello, Charlene.
Hello, Alma. Hello, I'm Charlene Navaja, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. A 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the Philippines, according to the US-ASEAN, briefly triggering a tsunami warning.
Images of deserted streets in the Brunei capital of Bandar Seri Begawan as the country locked down to curb a rapidly growing coronavirus outbreak.
And a flu expert, Dr. Donald Ray Josue, says that COVID-19 is more infectious than the ordinary flu virus.
And the U.S. Navy, along with 20 other partner nations, launched the Southeast Asia Cooperation and Training Exercise Tuesday in Singapore and virtually.
First, here in the country, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the Philippines on Thursday. The United States Geological Survey reported, briefly triggering a tsunami warning. The quake hit 63.3 kilometers or 39.2 miles east of Pondaguitan on Mindanao, the country's second largest island, around 1:45 a.m. at a depth of 65 kilometers. A tsunami warning was issued briefly, according to the U.S. Tsunami Warning System, which said the threat had passed around 2 hours after the quake. The archipelago is regularly rocked by quakes due to its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of intense seismic activity that stretches from Japan through Southeast Asia and across the Pacific Basin.
And in Thailand, Thai police fired water cannon, rubber bullets, and tear gas at protesters in Bangkok for a second day on Wednesday as demonstrators rallied against the government and its handling of the coronavirus crisis. Live with us is our EBC Thailand Bureau correspondent Jomar Baldo. Jomar.
Yes, that is correct. Riot police fired water cannons, rubber bullets, and tear gas to disperse the protesters of an anti-government rally in Bangkok on Wednesday. Said demonstration started at 3 p.m. at Victory Monument with a Thalufa group leading the assembly. Hundreds of protesters threw paint at a line of riot police who confronted them as they tried reaching the residence of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha at the 1st Infantry Regiment on Vibhavadi Rangsit Road. In response, uniformed personnel fired tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse the protesters. They fought back by throwing projectiles and firing a police tow truck which sent black smoke into the air. It is estimated that a dozen of demonstrators were arrested. The rally stopped about 4 p.m., but a few protesters further moved to a nearby area in Dendeng. It is remembered that this was the scene of a violent clash between the police and demonstrators on Tuesday night. The way to the Prime Minister's house was blocked by police with shipping containers and razor wire, but violent clashes continued into the evening, with police using the water cannon as defense. 8 officers were reported to be injured, including one officer shot in the thigh with a homemade gun. In an interview, Kisana Patanacharoen, Royal Thai Police Deputy Spokesman said that protesters continuously attacked officers on duty by throwing firecrackers, ping-pong bombs, and slingshots. On the other hand, Erawan Emergency Medical Center reported no incidents of injury so far from the protesters. Rally was organized to amplify the protesters' call for democratic reform and against the government's alleged mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you so much for updating us, Jomerl. You keep safe out there.
You keep safe too. Reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, I am Jomerl Bondadbaldo. We live in interesting times.
And back here in Manila, a gas leak explosion that injured one person Wednesday night was caused by a gas explosion, and it also prompted the suspension of construction of a building in Bonifacio, Global City in Taguig. According to the Bureau of Fire Protection, or BFP Taguig, the fire started at around 7:30 in the evening on August 11 at a building owned by Leach U that is being constructed at the corner of 20th and 21st Drives in BGC. Firefighters raised the first alarm at 7:40 in the evening, and the fire was put under control at 9:09 in the evening and put out at 9:35 p.m. The Taguig City government assured the public that there is no cause for alarm following the fire that gutted the construction site on 21st Drive in BGC. The city mayor said one person was injured in the incident. Officials identified the injured as Melchor de la Cruz, who is 35 years old. Now, he suffered third-degree burns in the face and other parts of his body. He was rushed to St. Luke's Medical Center in BGC for treatment. The Taguig City government identified De La Cruz as an on-duty project safety officer and said that he is in stable condition now. No fatalities were reported from the incident. The fire is under investigation.
And back to Thailand, where there are 2 coronavirus vaccines administered using a nasal spray being developed in Thailand are due to start human trials by the end of this year, according to the Bangkok Post. We have more of it from Jas Diona. Jas?
That is correct. In the height of Thailand's number of COVID-19 infections, Thailand is due to start its human trials by the end of this year for a 2 coronavirus vaccine using a nasal spray after its promising results in trials involving mice. These vaccines, based on the adenovirus and influenza, are developed by the National Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. Deputy government spokeswoman Ratchadathana Direct stated that after conducting trials in mice, the first phase of human trials should start by the end of this year. But this is still with pending approval from the Food and Drug Regulator. Moreover, the trials will also test protection against the Delta variant, with the second phase due in March next year and a target of production for a wider use in mid-2022, if the trials showed with a promising result, Ratchada said. Thailand is not alone in the quest of developing a nasal spray vaccine, as research has been going on in countries around the world to develop nasal sprays to help prevent and treat COVID-19, particularly given that the lining of the nose has been identified as a key entry point for the virus. With regards to Thailand's other homegrown vaccines, Chulalongkorn University's mRNA vaccine and an inactivated virus being developed by Mahidol University are due to start second phase human trials this month. Thailand's vaccination campaign has so far relied on China's Sinovac, AstraZeneca, and Sinopharm shots. Pfizer and BioNTech vaccines are being given as a third booster shot for frontline medical workers who had received 2 doses of Sinovac. Health Minister Anutin Charnvirakul said on Wednesday, 32.5 million doses of the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine should be delivered this year, making up an order of 30 million doses and donated shots from the United States. As of today, about 6.8% of the kingdom's population have received 2 doses of the vaccine. This update is from Channel News Asia. Back to you, Charlene.
Nasal spray. I hope that goes well. Thank you so much, Jess. You take care.
Thank you, and likewise, reporting live from Thailand, this is Jess Diana, and we live in interesting times.
From Thailand, we go to Cambodia, where the kingdom has extended its COVID safety campaign till August 19. We have more. Joining us live is Crystal Ann Ballesteros. Hello, Crystal.
Hi, Alma. You are right. The royal government of Cambodia has decided to continue the nationwide campaign to strengthen the measures for combating and preventing the COVID-19 spread for 1 more week until August 19. The royal government of Cambodia explained the decision by the campaign's effectiveness in the past 14 days in managing and delaying the larger transmission of Delta variant in the community, according to its new directive issued last evening. On August 11, Phnom Penh Municipal Administration announced to extend the ban of high-risk occupational and business activities and private gatherings of over 15 people for 2 more weeks, from August 13 to August 26, while the curfew will continue only for another week, from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. As of yesterday, Cambodia's COVID-19 tally rose to 83,384, of which 12,354 have been imported and 429 have been detected with Delta variant. The pandemic has so far claimed 1,614 lives, but 77,754 have recovered. On the brighter side, Alma, vaccination for children in the age of 12 to 17 kicked off on August 1, and since then, the numbers have been steadily increasing nationwide. Cambodia has successfully administered the first shot of Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine to 403,562 children up to Wednesday, August 11, which was yesterday. Of this number, 202,234 are females, and the vaccines could not be administered on 124 children due to underlying medical conditions and other related issues, which made them not eligible to receive the shots. The 403,562 already vaccinated represents 20.52% of the targeted 1.9 million in the 12 to 17 age group. Meanwhile, Cambodia is still studying the possibility of lowering the inoculation age to 10 and 11 to enable a wider segment of the population being protected under the herd immunity concept of the COVID-19 vaccination campaign. Back to you, Alma.
All right, that's good to know. I didn't know that you had started your vaccination campaign for children. Let's be looking forward to the developments on that. Thank you very much, Crystal, for your updates there in Cambodia.
Thank you as well, Alma, and you keep safe there. Reporting live here in Cambodia, I am Crystal Ann Ballesteros, and we live in interesting times.
And an old prison in Phuket has been turned into a COVID care center. Here's Ian Salada joining us live. Ian?
Hi, Charlene. Hello to all the viewers as well. We are live here in Nai Harn Beach, which is one of the most popular tourist attractions here in the island of Phuket. And here's the latest news and update. The old Phuket prison is now one of the COVID care centers for Muang district of Phuket, among other 4 locations where the people who tested positive of COVID-19 using the antigen test will be staying for the unspecified period of time regardless of not enduring for any symptoms of infections. The announcement was made during the live broadcast on Wednesday, along with the PPHO Chief Director, Phuket Vice Governor, and the TAT Phuket Office Director, and the other high-level provincial officers. According to Dr. Kusak, the Chief of PPHO, they do not need to see a doctor or be taken to the local quarantine or even a field hospital, but we will send teams of medical staff to check them frequently. And Charlene, during the broadcast, there were no simplification about the period of time that the people will stay and how frequently will the antigen test be done, and in what condition the people are allowed to go home since no symptoms of infections is seen to the people. And the old Phuket prison is considered as one empty building has no more prisoners in the said location. The PPAO staff has developed the building to be on the CCS. The other CCS are Wat Tim Wanaram and Wat Pratong, and there will be a fourth CCC in Windam, Phuket Patong. Meanwhile, Charlene, according to the TAT, or Tourism Authority of Thailand, a massive tourism marketing guide will be set in motion to different countries to broaden the message of the island that safety is still around the corner, despite the sudden news about the Swiss tourists. And according to the TAT director, the death of the Swiss tourists has no negative impact on Phuket Sandbox program of the island. Now, the main concern is to do strong marketing to convey a strong message overseas and to all tour operators that Phuket is the most vaccinated province, has an intensive health protocols, and the secure safety of all tourists. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you so much for your good news there, Ian. But still, take care.
Thank you very much. Reporting live from Phuket, Thailand, this is Ian Silada, and we live in interesting times.
And from Phuket, Thailand, we go to Vietnam, where the Minister of Health, Nguyen Tan Long, warned of a prolonged COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in the Ho Chi Minh City and other southern localities. Meanwhile, the risk of COVID-19 outbreak remains high in other cities and provinces, as a great number of people have returned from pandemic-hit areas, but they are not well managed, according to the ministry. So far, Vietnam has confirmed 236,091 cases, including 232,950 locally transmitted cases recorded in 62 out of 63 cities and provinces nationwide since April 27. The national caseload includes 85,154 recovered cases and 4,487 deaths. The recent spike in daily infection cases in the southern Asian country was tied with the Delta variant. As COVID-19 soar in Vietnam, hundreds of checkpoints have sprung up to enforce a strict lockdown in the capital, Hanoi, where even grocery trips are restricted. In contrast to many of its Southeast Asian neighbors who are also suffering through their worst ever wave of the pandemic, Vietnam is rigorously enforcing stay-at-home rules in several major cities. Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam's business hub, has been badly hit and cases are rising despite a stay-at-home order and nighttime curfew. The government is worried Hanoi may not be far behind, with thousands of people fined in recent days for going out without permission, without masks, or gatherings in groups, according to authorities.
And images of deserted streets in the Brunei capital of Bandar Seri Begawan as the country locked down to curb a rapidly growing coronavirus outbreak. The tiny Islamic Sultanate saw a record infection count of 42 cases Monday, days after it reported its first locally transmitted COVID-19 virus case in 15 months over the weekend. Let's take a look.
So it's very disheartening to know that unfortunately we have these cases, and in the last 3 days it's like the number has been keep on going and going up. Yes, the restrictions are tighter this time around, and I hope that in the next 1 or 2 weeks we'll get to go back into some semblance of normalcy that we previously experienced last year.
I'm quite relieved actually to know that the Brunei government's swift action when handling the situation. This has proven last year when Brunei government handled our first cases.
We can definitely overcome this. We've done it before. The last 15 months, we did 15 months, okay? So I think we can do it. Definitely can do it. I'm pretty confident that we all can do it.
Brunei imposed strict curbs to halt the spread of COVID-19 after finding its first locally transmitted cases in the country in over a year. 7 community infections were found, the health ministry said Saturday, leading the government to close all places of worship and postpone social events for 2 weeks. Mass events were also limited to groups of 30 people over this period as school classes were moved online and restaurants barred from serving dine-in. The tiny Islamic Sultanate has largely remained coronavirus-free, logging only 3 deaths since the pandemic began. The small nation is a home to just over 450,000 people, sharing its only land border with its much larger neighbor, Malaysia, which has so far recorded more than 1.3 million infections and more than 11,000 deaths. The country has also been steadily ramping up its vaccination process, with nearly 32% of its 450,000 people getting at least 1 jab.
And back here in Manila, hundreds of residents in the Philippine capital received their government cash aid to ease the economic pain caused by the latest coronavirus lockdown. Take a look.
Binigyan po ako ng pera. Nakakain ko ako dahil isa lang ako sa buhay ko. Wala po naman ako tinutuloyan. Maliit lang po ang bahay ko. Nangangamuhan po ako. Kumikita po ako ng 100, isang araw. Basta makakain lang ako. Yun lang po. Hirap. Pag hindi ka magtatrabaho, wala ka makakain. Kaya yan, magtsatsaga na lang ako. Minsan nilalakad ko. Hanggang doon sa dulo, dulong-dulo ko. Doon pumupunta ako sa matanda.
Every other day ang biyahe, tapos isang tao lang pasero. Tapos may curfew hour pa.
Kaya mahina.
Yan lang.
Kaya mahina po.
Kaya umina ang biyahe. Hindi ako naghirap. Ngayon lang. Sa bahay, may kumpleto. May stereo ako, may TV. Dati may aircon ako. Bininta ko na dahil walang pambayad sa bahay.
Ito po yung 3,000 na nakuha ko. Magagamit po namin pambayad ng kuryente, tubig, pambili na pong bigas, ulam, yun po. Pambili po ng gamot ng nanay ko tsaka tatay ko po.
About 80% of the more than 13 million people living in the National Capital Region are eligible for the one-off cash payment to ease the economic pain caused by the latest lockdown. A resurgence in infections, partly fueled by the hyper-contagious Delta variant that has torn through neighboring countries, has triggered lockdowns in the capital and other areas as well. President Duterte also said recently that the country could not afford more lockdowns. The stricter rules, which include an 8-hour nighttime curfew as well as a ban on restaurant dining and outdoor exercise, are expected to cost the economy about $3 billion a week in lost output. Officials warned Tuesday of economic speed bumps ahead, even after data showed that gross domestic product rebounded 11.8% on year in the second quarter.
The first day for the distribution of financial assistance to low-income beneficiaries in Metro Manila went off smoothly, Department of the Interior and Local Government Secretary Eduardo Año said Wednesday night. Año said he expects the same to happen in the coming days of the cash aid distribution. The DILG earlier assured that there will be no delay in the distribution of ayuda from the national government for low-income individuals in the National Capital Region. Metro Manila was placed under ECQ from August 6 to 20 to arrest the further spread of COVID-19 due to the highly transmissible Delta variant. The national government has released almost 11 billion pesos to assist low-income families that would be affected by the lockdown.
Meanwhile, some 3 chartered flights funded by the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA brought home a total of 1,083 Filipinos to Davao, Cebu, and Manila on Wednesday. At least 387 repatriates from Oman arrived in Davao City and were followed by another 346 on board a Philippine Airlines flight that landed from the United Arab Emirates to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport around 8 in the morning. The third and final chartered flight, Philippine Airlines PR 8657, arrived in Cebu City from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in the afternoon, carrying 350 passengers. It is always a good day when we get to bring home as many of our kababayans home. Today is special, having mounted 3 chartered flights. It means more Filipinos are safe here at home with their families and their loved ones, according to DFA Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, Sara Lu Ariola. The latest arrivals bring to 19 the total number of DFA chartered repatriation flights since June 2021. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Charlene and I will be back right after this.
Hello everyone, we're Zach and Zeph. Catch us on Letters and Music on air and online this coming Saturday, August 14, 1 to 2 p.m. only here in Net 25. See ya!
Yeah, you. If it's not you, it's not anyone. Not anyone. Kumanta, sumaya tayong lahat. Saya-saya.
Totoo ang kasabihang may pera sa basura, lalo na kung magagawa ang iba't ibang bagay mula sa mga recyclable material na inaakala ng iba na itatapon na. May ilang barangay sa bansa ang nagre-recycle ng basura at makikita ang iba't ibang bagay na gawa sa basura. Mga dekorasyon sa bahay, sa mga proyektong ito, nagiging malinis ang kapaligiran bukod sa mayroon pang pagkakakitaan.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Malaysian Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin meets coalition leaders. Prime Minister Yassin has refused to yield to mounting calls to quit, but said he would face a no-confidence vote in parliament in September. Political tensions have been escalating in the country after the king rebuked the administration for misleading parliament, and hundreds staged a rare anti-government protest last weekend. The latest blow came Tuesday when several members of the United Malay National Organization, the biggest party in his coalition, publicly pulled their support and a cabinet minister resigned from his post. Alfred Balmes has more. Alfred.
Hi, Charlene. Good afternoon. Now, in Malaysia, the political situation in the country remains fluid after a day of intense drama, which is certain to only escalate in the coming days. The meeting between Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin and coalition leaders from Perikatan Nasional yesterday went on late into the evening, and the drama is continuing to unfold. The question that some sources are asking is when will Parliament convene and whether this will be even sooner than the September 6th date that had been set earlier. Yesterday started with a routine pre-cabinet audience between Yang Dipertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah, the Ayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah, and Muhyiddin, which was held virtually. Sources indicated that Perikatan parliamentary support was among the topic discussed after 14 OMNO MPs had recently retracted their support for the Prime Minister. It is believed that the King had told Muhyiddin to test his support through a confidence motion and a special parliamentary sitting that must be held on date earlier than September 6. After the audience with the King, the Prime Minister headed off to a long cabinet meeting in Putrajaya, where he is believed to have informed cabinet members of the possibility of bringing forward the parliament meeting before September 6. This all came after OMNO recently announced that a number of MPs had retracted their support for the Perikatan government and Muhyiddin as premier. In the wake of that, in a televised address last Wednesday, after meeting the King face-to-face, Muhyiddin has announced that the Perikatan government that would table a confidence motion in Parliament when it reconvenes of September 6th, and that the King had consented to this. On Monday, OMNO upped the ante by publishing a list of 14 OMNO MPs who had retracted their support to its official website. It was also revealed that UMNO President Dato' Sri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi had presented the list to the King in an audience earlier this month. Yesterday afternoon, press members were forwarded messages informing them of an emergency Perikatan meeting involving coalition parties that would take place later at 5 p.m. Sources said that 5 p.m. meeting, for which invitations were sent on Sunday, was to deliberate on the outcome of the pre-cabinet audience between the King and the Prime Minister. Leaders were tightly lipped except to indicate that it was more briefing with the Prime Minister, who explained the various scenarios that lay ahead. Among those at the meeting were Minister in the Prime Minister Department Dato' Sri Taqiyuddin Hasan, Home Minister Dato' Sri Hamzan Sayunuddin, and Sarawak Chief Minister Dato' Hindi Abang Johari Ton Oping. Some Perikatan Coalition Party presidents like Sabah Progressive Party President Dato' Sri Yung Tek Lee attended the meeting via video call. The meeting ended at around 7 p.m. Perikatan leaders left quietly to separate exit at the opposite side of Perdana Putra in a bid to avoid press members who had been gathering since 3:30 p.m. According to the sources privy to the meeting, Muhyiddin had announced his intention to stick to the scheduled September 6 Parliament sitting date. The Speaker will not be advised to reconvene Parliament earlier. He will stick the September 6 date for Parliament to reconvene. It is understood that the political situation remains fluid, and observers have hinted that coming days will be crucial to the nation's political structure. After 7 p.m. meeting at Perdana Putra, Muhyiddin was spotted back to his residence at Bukit Damansara along with the police court at 7:50 p.m. There were more than 10 press members staked out near his house at Bukit Damansara from 2 p.m. At of press time, there were no further development. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you so much for your updates, Alfred. You stay safe out there.
Likewise, live reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Alfred Balmes. We live in interesting times.
A flu expert here in the country, Dr. Donald Ray Josue, says COVID-19 is more infectious than the ordinary flu virus. He also discussed the difference between the two and its symptoms. Let's listen in.
At ang rekomendasyon po ng WHO is to malaki po yung pagkakahawig ng mga sintomas na nakikita sa mga taong nagkaka-impeksyon ng flu at saka COVID. So ano-ano po ito? Ito po ay maaaring lagnat, ubo, nahirapang huminga, sakit ng lalamunan, or pananakit ng katawan. Karaniwan po yung simptoma kung saan nawawalan po ng pang-amoy or panglasa, yan po ay simptoma nita sa COVID, no, more than sa flu. Pero regardless po of the symptoms na nakikita natin doon sa flu at saka sa COVID, ang mahalaga pong maintindihan ng ating mga kababayan na maari po nating proteksyonan ang ating mga sarili sa pamamaraan po na pagpapalakas ng ating immune system, no? So dapat po kumakain tayo ng gulay, prutas, ehersisyo, at ang rekomendasyon po ng WHO is to also have an annual vaccination po, no, against flu para po talagang maprotektahan tayo laban sa sakit.
Canada is funding 7 development projects worth around 757 million pesos in the Philippines, the Canadian Embassy in Manila announced Thursday. Canadian Ambassador to the Philippines, Peter MacArthur, said Canada continues to work in a coordinated manner with government agencies and non-governmental organizations to ensure that these projects will reach their target beneficiaries. The projects include education initiatives in Parañaque, Taguig, Pateros, and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Masla, Mindanao, to be implemented by various groups, including Save the Children, Department of Education, Big Bad Boo Studios Incorporated, and the Bangsamoro Ministry of Basic, Higher, and Technical Education. Healthcare initiatives implemented by the Canada-based non-governmental organization Interpairs and its Philippine partner, the Likhaan Center for Women's Health, to help more than 54,000 women and girls in Metro Manila and surrounding provinces, as well as by the United Nations Population Fund in at least 10 municipalities in the Calabarzon region, among others. In his statement, MacArthur said he reaffirmed Canada's commitment to supporting the country and Filipinos amid the pandemic.
In other news, back here in the country, the Department of Interior and Local Government on Thursday said barangay tanods or village watchmen and other members of the so-called Police Auxiliary Units or PAO are not allowed under the law to carry firearms in the performance of their official duties and functions. Now, Secretary Eduardo Año said, while we acknowledge that barangay tanods play a complementary role to local authorities in the maintenance of the peace of order in their respective communities, we firmly reiterate that they're not authorized to carry any firearm in the performance of their duties, even if they own these firearms, Año said. Año also said the law is clear that registered firearms of local government units shall only be issued to a government official or employee with a permanent plantilla position. Since the barangay tanod position is not part of the plantilla, barangay tanods are therefore not authorized to bear firearms while on duty. This came following a barangay tanod's fatal shooting of a person in Tondo, Manila. Año said if a barangay tanod feels that he is in a potentially dangerous situation, he can always seek the help of the local police or other barangay tanods.
And the U.S. Navy, along with 20 other partner nations, launched the Southeast Asia Cooperation and Training Exercise Tuesday in Singapore and virtually. Known as CCAT, the exercise aims to foster enhanced cooperation between Southeast Asian countries by incorporating standardized training, tactics, and procedures when faced with crisis, contingency, or illegal activities in the maritime domain. Now in its 20th year, the annual drills began on Tuesday and involved the navies of 21 countries. They include Australia, Bangladesh, Brunei, Canada, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Maldives, New Zealand, Philippines, South Korea, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Thailand, East Timor, United Kingdom, United States, and Vietnam.
Meanwhile, the third and final Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC technical meeting cluster is currently ongoing. Nearly 2,400 officials, policymakers, and private sector representatives from 21 economies involved in efforts to drive the region's recovery progress are now meeting. The meeting cluster will culminate in a two-day plenary session of senior officials on September 2 to the 3rd, chaired by Vangelis Vitalis, Deputy Secretary of Trade and Economic Affairs of New Zealand's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. The APEC Digital Economy Steering Group kickstarts the meeting cluster by pursuing its implementation of the APEC Internet and Digital Economy Roadmap. The roadmap lays out 11 key areas and actions to facilitate technological and policy exchanges among member economies, promote innovative, inclusive, and sustainable growth, as well as bridge the digital divide in the APEC region. Under the Business Mobility Group, officials are continuing their pursuit of the safe resumption of travel and aim to strengthen the integrity of the APEC Business Travel Card or ABTC scheme. This includes efforts to prevent exploitation and fraudulent activity.
Singapore on Wednesday upgraded its growth forecast for this year as the trade-reliant economy's key export markets pick up strength thanks to rapid coronavirus vaccine rollouts. The prosperous city-state, one of the world's most open economies, suffered its worst ever recession last year as it was hammered by the pandemic. But stronger overseas demand is helping to power a rebound, which is being closely watched as Singapore is seen as a bellwether for the health global trade. The Trade Ministry said that the economy is now expected to grow 4 to 7% for the full year from an earlier forecast of 4 to 6% made in May. The ministry also said that while COVID-19 cases continue to rise globally because of the fast-spreading Delta variant, vaccination rates have increased, particularly in the United States and Europe, allowing them to press on with reopening. This will offset a bleaker picture in Asia, where vaccination rates are slower and curbs on movements have been reimposed. For the second quarter to June, Singapore's economy grew 14.7% on year, taking first half growth to 7.7%. The key manufacturing sector expanded 17.7%, extending the 11.4% growth recorded in the previous 3 months. The domestic economy also grew following the lifting of curbs.
Meanwhile, in Thailand, the overall sentiment of foreign businesses operating there has plunged as foreign investors are growing concerned about the severe COVID infections and a delay in Thailand's vaccine allocations. The new Foreign Business Confidence Index, or FBCI, which gauges foreign business sentiment in Thailand, stood at only 27.7 in the second quarter of this year on a scale of 100 points, down from 33.2 in the first quarter of this year and 29.8 in the fourth quarter of 2020 when the index was posted for the first time. The index conducted by the University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce, or UTCC, sampled 70 presidents, vice presidents, and secretaries generals of the Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand, whose members are from 35 countries. It questions them mainly on two areas: Thailand's economic prospects and their own business confidence. There are 40 foreign chambers of commerce in Thailand governing 7,000 companies. Thanavat Ponvichai, UTCC president, said foreign business confidence in the country's overall economy and their business outlook remains low, standing at 28.5 points and 26.8 points, respectively. According to Mr. Thanavat, foreign businesses also forecast Thailand's economic prospects to contract for another year after a 6.1% fall in 2020, and most respondents said they were not sure when the economy would recover. Stanley Kang, chairman of the Joint Foreign Chamber of Commerce in Thailand, said that foreign businesses expect Thai exports will fare better in the third and fourth quarters, boosted by the weak baht and belief that the government succeeds in controlling the contagion.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or POEA, on Tuesday warned aspiring overseas Filipino workers against a social media account offering jobs in Japan. In a Facebook post, the agency also reminded job applicants, particularly abroad, that many countries are not yet accepting foreign workers due to the pandemic. In this era of COVID-19, there are not so many jobs in Japan. Borders are closed and many companies have closed and laid off Filipino workers. The POEA said, "It's not easy to get a job in Japan. Those recruiters will spend your money." The POEA said the advertisement of the supposed job vacancy in Japan has been there for a long time and is being used by unscrupulous individuals. It said POEA or its officials have no affiliation with the Facebook page below. This vacancy announcement 2017 on GMA News has been around for a long time and is still used by fraudsters and illegal recruiters. The agency said, and I quote, "There are too many FB or Facebook pages offering jobs supposedly abroad. Don't cut into such job advertisements. First of all, many countries are still closed to OFWs. Thousands of them have also returned home and are still returning to the Philippines due to unemployment." Meanwhile, the POEA urged the public to visit the right page, which is https://www.poea.gov.ph/cgi-bin/jobs-menu.asp, where they can find a job that suits them.
Meanwhile, the Philippines is now asking the Hong Kong government to consider the international vaccination certificate being used by the Bureau of Quarantine in place of its required recognized vaccination record, the Department of Foreign Affairs said on Tuesday night. Now, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. earlier revealed that Hong Kong is not accepting the country's vaccination cards because they are not connected to a single source. DFA Assistant Secretary for Strategic Communications Eduardo Meñez was asked if any Filipino has been affected by the policy yet. He said numbers are uncertain, but the consulate is seeking to get the Philippine BOQ International Vaccination Certificate so that may be shown by Philippine travelers. The Philippines is currently under Group A, specified places or high risk in Hong Kong's COVID-19 travel advisory, meaning all Filipino travelers will be subject to a 21-day quarantine period. And under this category, all vaccinated individuals are also required to present a negative reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction result conducted within 72 hours before the scheduled time of departure of the aircraft, on top of the recognized vaccination record. The Labor Department previously reported that Hong Kong was set to lift its travel ban on the Philippines on August 9, which would allow more than 3,000 stranded overseas Filipino workers to fly to the former British colony.
The Philippine government is coordinating with the international community on the acceptance of vaccination cards issued to individuals who are already fully vaccinated against the COVID-19, Malacanang said on Tuesday. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque issued the statement after Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said Hong Kong does not honor the vaccination cards issued by the Philippines local government units and the Department of Health Bureau of Quarantine. Let's take a look.
Nakakalungkot na balita po yan, no? Pero ang buong daigdig po, we are finding ways and means now para magkaroon po tayo ng basihan na kilalanin yung ating mga vaccination cards. Hindi lang po yan problema ng Pilipinas, problema po yan ng buong daigdig. Siguro po makakatulong na meron tayong tinatawag na yellow book na ini-issue ng Bureau of Quarantine. Alam ko po nung nagpunta ako ng South Africa nung minsan, yung mandatory vaccination ko po for South Africa ay doon record at yun yung pinakita ko sa border control ng South Africa. No? So siguro po, pwede nating dalhin ang ating mga vaccination cards doon sa Bureau of Quarantine para makakuron tayo ng yellow card. No? Pero ang alam ko po, even IATA, yung private sector that deals with the airlines, sila na pong gumagawa ng paraan dahil problema po talaga kapag wala tayong standard na masihan para ipakita yung ating mga vaccination status. So, all I can say is nakikipag-ugnayan po ang gobyerno sa international community pagdating dito. Tinitignan po natin kung po pwedeng magamit yung yellow card ng Bureau of Quarantine at tinitignan po natin kung po pwede rin ang WHO ay manguna na doon sa initiative para magkaroon tayo ng uniform na pagtanggap ng mga vaccination cards.
The Philippine government is issuing yellow cards for departing overseas Filipino workers who have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The Philippine Overseas Employment Administration said in an advisory. The POEA advised the fully vaccinated OFWs to secure the BOQ-issued International Certificate of Vaccination, otherwise known as the Yellow Card, when required by the host country. Fully vaccinated OFWs may register for an appointment with BOQ at https://boq.pisopay.com.ph. They are required to pay the 300 pesos fee for the processing of the yellow card.
In other news, the ASEAN Online Sale Day, or AOSD, a celebration of the unity among the ASEAN member states through e-commerce trade, is on its second year. The ASEAN commemorates its 54th founding anniversary through the AOSD to be held from August 8 to the 10th of this month. Consumers can avail of discounts of up to 50% off, buy one, take one, and many more by visiting ASEAN Online Sale Day website to view the local online stores as well as those of other ASEAN countries. The AOSD aims to provide continuous sales opportunities, facilitate cross-border e-commerce in the ASEAN region, promote consumer trust in e-commerce, and drive economic recovery. Out of the 118 participants, 56 companies are targeting ASEAN neighbors. The participating companies represent various sectors: food and beverage, tourism and travel, fashion, e-marketplaces, consumer goods, crafts, and home and living, and micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MISMIS, with products ranging from snacks, fresh product, chocolates, coffee, condiments, cosmetics, woven items, and home decor.
Would you take a swig of water from your faucet if it originally came from the sewer? Treating wastewater to put it back into public use can help against water crisis around the world, according to the United Nations. Singapore has a developed system for treating sewage involving a network of tunnels and high-tech plants.
As always, thank you, Charlene, for keeping me company here on ASEAN in Focus.
Thank you so much, Alma. But before I go, I'd like to greet one of the amazing women I know here in Hanoi, Miss Gina Cruz. I hope you had a really great birthday yesterday. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Charlene Navaja from your EBC Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Happy birthday, Gina. And with that, I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow. We live in interesting times.